Hello everyone and welcome to Green Healing. Today's two forms of abuse sort of go hand in hand, where emotional abuse is at the forefront of verbal abuse and verbal abuse is used to reinforce emotional abuse. Again, I just want to give a little warning that if you have experienced any of these forms of abuse, the information might be upsetting to you, but I'm sharing the knowledge that I have gathered over the years. Perchance it might help you overcome the abuse that you survived. So emotional abuse is basically when an abuser says or does something to make their victim feel stupid or worthless. Obviously, emotional abuse can also be combined with other forms of abuse like sexual abuse and many other forms of abuse as well. It includes, without being limited to, name calling, blaming most, if not all, relationship problems on the other person. The guy who abused me, who I like to call narky these days, it was always my fault. Anything was always my fault. Always blaming me for any little thing that didn't please him, that didn't suit his personal needs. He never took responsibility, either for making efforts or anything like that. I had to change. And when I did, it wasn't the right way, so I had to change again. It was never enough, and it always had to be me, never him. Today, I know how ridiculous that is. But back then, I believed that I was always in the wrong. And that's what abusers do a lot of the time. They make you feel so wrong that you will do anything they ask you to do in order to make everything right again. So moving on. The silent treatment is another form of emotional abuse. The silent treatment is something that a lot of people who don't want to be abusive tend to do because they don't exactly always know how to deal with emotions. That's why today I always make point to say, I can't deal with this right now, or I can't talk right now, or I need my space. I need to, I need to blow off some steam, walk it off. Stuff like that, just to let the other person know a little bit that you're not completely ignoring them, but you just can't deal with it right now. And that's perfectly fine. That's normal. And sometimes the only thing you can do is remain silent because you don't want to scream or you don't want to shout too loud or anything like that. And there are certain situations where it's okay. But for it to be all the time, the minute that you do something that they don't like all the time and ignoring you, the silent treatment for a prolonged period of time, not just a certain number of days, but for hours on end, as though you weren't even in the room, that is taking it to a degree that is definitely unhealthy for a relationship and abusive to the other person because you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what they're going through, you don't know, and they don't seem to be hearing you with expressing how you're feeling in that situation. Not allowing the person to have contact with family or friends, which is another thing they try to the isolation part of the abuse. Destroying possessions, extreme jealousy, intimidating the person, the victim, causing fear to gain control, which is borderline psychological abuse. Threatening to hurt themselves if their victim does not comply. Threats of abandonment. Oh, this is one that narky did a lot. I'm going to leave you if you don't do this. If you don't dress that way to show me that you care what I think about how you look, I'm going to leave you. Like ridiculous things sometimes, but always underlined with threats of abandonment, threats of no affection, which is also borderline sexual abuse. If you can't prove this or that, I'll leave you. That's something that he would often say. threatening to have the other person deported if their victim is an immigrant, humiliating or making fun of the victim in front of family, in front of friends, and even just between the two of you. There was this one time where Narky had his friends over and he kept putting me down and making fun of me for every nitty-gritty little thing that I said or did. And in particular, in regards to the way I had pronounced something. So this time I had stood up for myself. I pointed out in rebuttal a grammatical error that he often made, and his friends laughed, and I could tell that he was very humiliated. At the time, I wasn't able to say, don't make fun of me, or like to stand up for myself in a more healthier manner, but I kind of took a jab back at him in that moment, feeling a bit more brave to confront him. And in response, he told me to shut up. He didn't want me to talk anymore. He kept telling different ways of telling me to shut up. And he turned to name calling, started calling me all sorts of names. This should have woken me up to what he was doing, to the manipulations, and to how he was always putting me down. But at the time, I was too asleep to realize what was going on in reality. There may have been a moment of clarity, but it was quickly followed by more fogginess. And when abusers manipulate us and do everything that they do, it creates some sort of brain fog that makes us unable to see through their game so clearly. Until we're hit with that huge moment of clarity, then we can see it. So verbal abuse is when language is used, spoken or written, to cause harm to another person. So recalling past mistakes is that the other person made is one of them. Expressing negative expectations. If you can't do this, this bad thing will happen, that sort of thing. Those sort of threats. Expressing distrust. Prove it, prove yourself. Threatening violence to their victim or their family and friends. Yelling, lying, name calling appears here also. Insulting, swearing, withholding information. Withholding information is how they get to manipulate us to believe falsities as truths. Giving unreasonable orders, talking ill of death and talking ill of the dead a lot. Telling the other person they're worthless or nothing but trouble. So undermining them, putting them down, making them feel worthless, making them feel powerless. That's what abusers do. Narky combined emotional abuse and verbal abuse a lot together, and also with sexual abuse. It was a variety basket of abuse. So I'm going to close with a capsule of Healing Through Humor, which describes symptoms from CPTSD caused by abuse, from built up anger that we may sometimes experience. Sometimes we just need a healthy outlet. So Healing Through Humor, Capsule 8, about raging. Neighbor opens door, screams, closes door. Me. Oh, that seems like a good idea. Pause. Oh no, did I wake anyone up? Later. Friend. So why did you throw your clothes across the room? Me. Because I was worried I'd break something if I threw the chair the clothes were on. So I hope that this information has been helpful for you to recognize abuse that you may be currently living or that you may have lived in the past. If you like what I do here on Green Healing, I have links in the description of how you can contribute. And once again, as always, empower yourself and be emotionally free.